it became this cult thing, and I knew that Block Rockin Beats had changed forever.
On this week's All Walks podcast, we are joined by DJ and Block Rockin Beats master Dec Pierce.
I had a brain hemorrhage. It physically felt like an explosion.
He tells a wonderful story about how he got into radio, what makes him tick, and a life scare.
I went from having 45 worries that morning to having one worry, and that one worry was, I just want to get better.
So without any further ado, here's Dec Pierce.
The All Walks podcast is now in your ear.
Go live! 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, and welcome to DJ Dec Pierce in the house. Declan, welcome to the Vicar room.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, fucking start. Good start, Dec.
Yeah.
We're here live in the Vicar rooms, and I'm absolutely delighted to have across the table Dec Pierce in here with me. Declan, how are you?
I'm very good. It is nice to be here. Beautiful setup you have here. And it's great to see you again, Greg. I haven't seen you in a long, long time. We go way back.
We do.
We'll delve into that, no doubt, pretty shortly. But we do, and it's great to see you again.
No, it's great to be here. And, we've been talking about getting you on for quite a while. You've been busy and you've had a significant health scare that we'll talk about. But also, your career is going to the moon. It's great to watch it.
I think it's more so, I've got a little 7-year-old and she's wild. So try to get a bit of time away from her to sit down and relax and take a bit of time out in between all the work stuff. No, it's great to be here.
Are you now fatigued? You played in Galway in front of, I believe, a crowd of 4,000 people.
Yeah, you kind of get used to it. It depends on the gig, but sometimes if you have a high energy gig, you can kind of have a little bit of a buzz the day after, and then you hit a kind of a wall on the Monday or Tuesday. But I've kind of gotten used to it. It used to affect me more than it probably does now. I to try and combat that, I'll get up on a Monday or Tuesday morning and go for a little run, and I find that kind of resets me, because sometimes with the gigs you get this massive high, on stage, and then when you're finished there's a massive come down. So to try and balance that, I try and get out for a run or get out for a walk, and that kind of rebalances me down for the day.
You leave all your energy on the stage.
Yes, it's a full on show.
I must say, my favorite image is always, I want to talk about the number that you have on your back, the 95, isn't it?
Yeah.
We'll talk about that, but I love the image, and you do it quite a bit, where you can see the crowd from you essentially going crazy, bouncing around the place, and the lights change. You can see them bouncing. I mean, that must be the most incredible feeling.
It is. It's an incredible feeling, but it's always been about the crowd. You know what I mean? That's the most important part of the show for me. So sometimes you walk out on stage and you feel that energy, and when you feel the energy from the crowd, it gives you an enormous lift, you know what I mean? And then when you do a show like that, some shows, if you go out and the crowd are quiet or they're hard or they're sitting back and they're going, entertain me please, the gig could feel quite long. But with a gig like we just had in Galway, we walked out on stage, and from the second you start to the second you finish, you can just feel them just throwing the energy at you, and that just lifts you up. And the thing about Block Rockin Beats is, with Block Rockin Beats, I left kind of the music game for a while, and I kind of got a bit disillusioned with it. And when I came back in to do Block Rockin Beats, I said to myself, I'm going to play tunes that I want to play. I'm going to stage gigs that I want to stage, and I want to know the crowd. So this is what this is what we're going to give you. And when you kind of build that, the crowd that are coming in, they know what they're going to expect. So you're not kind of playing to an audience that are sort of flat or dead. You're playing to an audience that just want to have a big night, and that was really important for me. It's funny you mentioned the 95. I think of all the questions that I've been asked, that's the question that I get asked the most, and sometimes I don't bother giving an answer to, because I like people kind of guessing. 95, what is it? Oh, it's for you to find out. You never know. That's actually 1995. I was asked, as we were designing the jerseys with Umbro, and they said, do you want to put a number on the back, and like put a number 1 and put a number 9 because you're a striker, blah blah blah. And I was like, no. I said, I want to put 95 on. So what's that? I said, that's the year I started DJing. So I started DJing in the summer of 1995. It was a beautiful hot summer. Rave music, dance music was massive at the time, and it's a year that just holds a special place in my heart. So when they said, what number do you want to put on, 95 was a no-brainer. So that's the reason behind 95.
I think that's a perfect starting point for this chat. So 1995, the summer, you painted the picture perfectly there. Talk to me, what got you to say to yourself, you know what, I'm going to give this my full energy?
Like, I, growing up as a kid in the 80s, I grew up in Sandymount, Ringsend area, that's where my family are from. And I was very much influenced by the music and the style and the taste of music that my parents listened to. I grew up in a house, and then my grandparents as well. Like at home as a kid when I was 7, 8, 9, I'd be with my granddad. He'd have the record player in the corner. Music was always a massive part of my life. And my granddad would have the record player there. He'd have Perry Como, he'd have, Frank Sinatra, all these kind of crooner kind of stuff, playing away. And I've got memories coming back from primary school of my grandparents waltzing around the living room in the house. So music was always it was always very strongly present in my life. And the one thing that I took from music at a very early age wasn't necessarily the melody or the tunes themselves. It was the magic that music gave people. I got such a kick out of the happiness that music gave, because I used to see it all the time. You know what I mean? So like my granddad or my granny or my parents might have had a bad week or a bad time, and you'd be aware of that as a kid. But when they stuck on music, I always saw it as an escapism. And that's even it's only in the last couple of years I began to realize that and to accept that and to remember it. And when you do chats like this, you jog your memory and you go, yeah, that was the high. The initial high wasn't necessarily that's a great song or listen to that riff or that melody or whatever it was. It was the pure drug that music was for people. And I got booked on that, and I wasn't really aware of that at the time, but I definitely was. And in school, I was very tall. I still am very tall, as you know.
Out in trunk,
as you know. But at the age of 12, I was 6'2". I was quite tall and long. And when I was in primary school, I was very quiet as well, which was kind of a contrast to the person that you see on stage. And we can talk about that, but I was a very quiet kind of guy and quite reserved in primary school. And as a result, I was bullied. So it was primary school. I went to a fantastic primary school. I went to Stardust in Sandymount, and the school itself was absolutely amazing. The teachers were incredible. It was just one of those circumstantial things where I was a tall lad. I was an easy target, and I was bullied. And I've talked about that quite a bit. But when I went home, I remember music became my escape. So I'd switch on the music, and I was this completely different person. I was quite quiet in school and quite reserved, and in primary school anyway. And music became like a little escape for me. So I always saw the impact it had on my grandparents, and then suddenly it was something that I kind of leaned towards. And as I got older, the only thing that I really wanted to do was I wanted to have a radio show of some sort, and I wanted to play those tunes and to project that happiness onto other people. So I got quite heavily invested in radio at a young age, and all I wanted to do was to try and get that radio show where I could play music and make people happy by music. And my goal was to just somehow get on the radio and play music.
It's funny you mentioned that. So we were in school together.
Yeah.
And I would have known you for about 4 years. We played in the second row together for a junior cup campaign.
We did. We made best time of my life.
And you were quiet, but you were great company to be around. But I also remember going to the Towers Hotel, I'm going to say it was.
Well, yeah.
And I was going to somebody's 18th. So I would have been at this stage maybe in 60th or 50th or 4th. I can't remember what year it was. And I go in and you were the DJ.
Yeah.
And it was a side you had never seen. You were given the whole you what? And you're going mental, and your full energy was out. And I remember being with a couple of people who were like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Like, you were a totally different person.
That's what it was. It was like so DJing and getting on the radio. We can talk about the pirate stuff and all, but DJing became like an alter ego for me. Like it was like putting on a cape, or it was like Clark Kent taking off his glasses and suddenly he was Superman type thing. So the DJ box and that area on stage. I remember going to my first sort of teenage disco. I think it was the Wes, around about sort of when I was 14 or whatever it was, and everyone was in there and everyone was having a great time. Everyone was dancing, and I just remember walking onto the dance floor, and all I wanted to do was be behind that DJ box because I was so uncomfortable on the dance floor. I actually hated it. So the radio shows when I started off on pirate radio, or the DJ box, became like my safe zone. It became my zone where I had an alter ego, and that was, at the time, it was an alter ego. And I think eventually, as I got older, it became my actual personality. So yeah, it was easier for me to perform and to entertain the crowd and to see their happiness and to get a natural buzz off what I saw on the dance floor than it was for me to be on the dance floor. I hated being on the dance floor, and I still hate being on the dance floor.
Say amongst other artists, whether they're singer-songwriters or actors, I'd say if you had a conversation with some or most of them, they'd have the same journey, but without decks, they would have had a guitar, or they would have had a mirror to practice lines, where some actors you meet and some singer-songwriters you meet are very reserved.
Yeah.
But they get on stage and their whole personality comes out, and that's what gives them that joy, that energy with the crowd, as you've mentioned. It's truly special.
That's it. And probably even still to this day, you know, if you come to a Block Rockin Beats show, if you saw what happens behind the scenes, I'm probably the quietest member of the team. And that's just my personality. But I remember, as I said to you, like, I remember just seeing the impacts that music had on people, and wanting to give that to people, and the joy and the happiness that music that I saw as a very young kid gave to people became a bit of a drug, to be honest with you. And in my head, it was a no-brainer. It was something that I had to do, and that I wanted to do. So I remember looking for my first radio show. How do you break into radio? How do you get on air? Because it was impossible at the time. You had the big sort of powers like 2FM and, you know, Rock 104 or whatever it was called at the time, and you just couldn't get in there. It was a really impossible thing to do. There was no internet, there was no social media, so you had to sort of try and create an opportunity for yourself. And I remember being obsessed with pirate radio. Like, I would sit in my bedroom and I would spend hours listening to pirate radio. I was obsessed with dance music. I've always been obsessed with beats and drums. I had a drum kit when I was 12 or whatever it was, so dance music became something that I have an interesting taste in music. My very early sort of musical interest would have probably started off with the pop era, the late 80s pop era. My first record was Band Aid, Do They Know It's Christmas, which I think was around about 1985. But around about the late 80s, there was this Stock Aitken Waterman trend. I don't know if you remember it, but it was like Kylie Minogue, Jason Donovan, Bananarama, all those kind of things, Rick Astley. But I remember being really obsessed with the instrumental versions of all those tracks. So if there was a really good pop record, I remember being really interested in the instrumental side of it, and that sort of quickly evolved into becoming quite obsessed with the electronic music scene and then the rave scene, and then I became fascinated with what was going on in the UK. And then I quickly found out that there was a rave scene that was happening in Ireland and in Cork and in Dublin and all that sort of stuff as well. But I had to get my radio show. I had to get on air somehow. I was painfully quiet and painfully shy, as you know. So how is this shy guy going to actually get a radio show? And I remember one evening, my family were having a barbecue in the house. I was 15, and my dad gave me a can of beer. And that can of beer literally gave me Dutch courage. And I remember making a phone call to the Pirate radio station, which was a radio station based in Ballybrack in Dublin, in a garden shed. I phoned them up after probably a half a can of beer, and I was feeling confident, and I asked them would they give me a shot. And he said, yeah, the guy who ran the station answered the phone. His name is Simon Marr. He's still a friend of mine. He answered the phone, and I don't know how or why he took me seriously, because I hadn't a clue what I was doing or what I was even talking about. But I ended up going over to the house. I met him, and he gave me my first radio show, which was a Wednesday night dance music show. And the first show was from his bedroom. It was 2 turntables, a microphone that wasn't working properly, a tape deck, and a CD player and a Discman. So it was a pretty raw start in my career. And it kind of snowballed from then, and the pirate scene was huge in the 90s. So
when you started your set for the first time ever, was it straight away, yeah, this is exactly what I want to do?
It was. I mean, yeah, it was. It was the buzz that I got off it. The high and the buzz was absolutely unbelievable. But I hadn't a clue what I was doing. My first link, microphone wasn't working, and the gear was really raw. So it took me a while. I had to borrow CDs off a mate of mine and things like that. So I had to try and gather all my music together and do that. But yeah, I knew very quickly this was something that I wanted to do. And then I went from that station was called Coast FM. It was based in Ballybrack in Dublin. And then eventually I sent a demo off to Pulse FM, which was a huge pirate in the 90s. They somehow took me seriously, because I've been listening back to the tapes, which I still have. I sounded awful, really, really bad. So I didn't really know what I was doing. I was kind of learning as I went along. I had the decks and the CD decks back in the house, and but I'm grateful for those days. I think learning by making mistakes and knowing, that was a great start for me. I loved it.
When you were with Pulse, did that afford you the opportunity to hit the rave scene at that stage?
Yeah.
Were you DJing a lot throughout the rave scene?
Yeah, I was. I did quite a bit. I mean, I suppose I had a life nearly of 2 sides. There was the side where I was in school and I was taking my studies really seriously, but my parents allowed me to my grandparents and all that kind of stuff encouraged us. So I go from school to the radio studios in Clontarf and start the show. But the radio show was really important to me. The gigs thing wasn't necessarily that important in the early days. I wanted to enjoy the radio show, and then I did a couple of gigs like the likes of Deep Light Club at Slockenbark Hotel, the Temple Theatre in town, place like that. And I did loads of mobile gigs as well. I did loads of weddings and that sort of stuff. So it's something that sort of snowballed from being a hobby to a career, and I never really thought too much about it. I sort of just went with the flow, and things sort of happened, as the snowball kept rolling, I suppose.
What's your listenership for Block Rockin Beats?
Oh, there's thousands. I mean, it's hitting every household in Ireland. And the funny thing about with Block Rockin Beats was that the Block Rockin Beats thing started for me at sort of, I think my lowest point. I was with another radio station at the time, and I quickly realized that it wasn't going anywhere. And I'd made a decision around about 2016. 2016, we found out we were expecting Ava. So on a personal level, after trying for quite a while unsuccessfully, but we found out that we were expecting Ava, and we were overjoyed about that. But on a kind of a professional level, I knew the radio thing was I just wasn't getting the fun or the enjoyment had gone out of it for me. So I made a decision to walk away. It was at that moment that I got an opportunity to meet a girl called Adele, who was in charge of Today FM at the time. I told her what I wanted to do, and I kind of made a decision. So I think walking away from my comfort zone gave me a lot of I don't know, I'd made peace with it. So I was probably more relaxed than I'd ever been. I wasn't thinking about things too much, and I said to her that, like, if I'm going to go back on air, if I'm going to give this DJing thing a go one more time, I'm going to do it my own terms. I kind of found myself in a situation in radio where I was just going through the motions. I was playing top 40 stuff, and doing radio shows and doing cover slots and things like that for various different people. But I kind of was going, why am I doing this? I'm actually not really enjoying it. I don't like the music I'm playing. we playlisted shows and things like that. So I said, nah, fuck it, I'm going to walk away. And then when I met Adele, I told her, I said, look, I've this idea for a show. I'm massively passionate about dance music. A dance music show that doesn't really take itself too seriously. That is sort of, you leave your brain at the door type thing. I'm not really going to be throwing B-sides and obscure remixes. I'm just going to play banging tunes and not take myself too seriously on air. The show was going really well. We kicked it off in 2017, 2018, 2019, and I had this idea in my head about a live show where you've got the dance tunes, except it's amplified with a full band, and the drums are, and you got big heavy drums and all that kind of stuff as well. But so the show was going really well, and then lockdown hit, and I said to myself, shit, this is not good, because everything stopped. I lost everything, you know what I mean? I'd lost the momentum of the radio show and the live show. But something really weird happened in lockdown, and people across Ireland, I could see it on social media, were buying disco lights and smoke machines, and they started to create this sort of kitchen rave, bedroom rave, back garden rave thing, because they literally were trapped in their houses. So this Friday night show on Today FM became an appointment to listen, and it became this cult thing.
Crazy.
So everyone was tuning in to Block Rockin Beats suddenly on a Friday and Saturday night, and the Friday night was the big one. And then when lockdown ended, I could feel that there was the fan base had grown. And we put a tour on sale, and it sold out straight away. And I knew that Block Rockin Beats had changed forever because of lockdown. It was something that I never would have thought in my wildest dreams could have happened.
You're currently with Today FM.
Yeah.
And in a regular week, how many hours are you doing in their studio?
I'm on twice a week. So I normally go in on a Wednesday night, and I'll prep the show. So I'll get some tunes out that I want to play. And I'll have the show organised, and then I go in on a Friday and a Saturday night. So Friday is 7 to 10, Saturday is 6 to 9, and it's just tunes and chats. And the show is very much left open to people that are tuned in to genuinely select tracks, and to send in requests. And you've got this 3-hour show on a Friday and Saturday night that doesn't take itself too seriously, that plays tunes, and I just do loads of shout outs, and I get so many WhatsApp messages and voice notes and all that kind of stuff. So I feel I've a wonderful relationship with the audience, and that happened during lockdown, and it's continued. I think a lot of people got to know who I was, off air through social media, and how difficult I found things during lockdown, and a lot of people reached out during those times. So it became more than just the music. There was a lot of people who had told me how much that escapism on a Friday night meant to them during lockdown, and I got letters and emails, like really detailed stuff, where people were telling me about how tough they were finding their life, and I found myself going, yeah, I'm a DJ who plays dance tunes, and suddenly people are telling me their stories. But I actually really enjoyed it, and I still get it now. So if I do a live gig, I always jump into the crowd at the end and spend sometimes an hour just chatting to people, getting photographs. And people do call me over and go, you've no idea how much Block Rockin Beats meant to me during lockdown. I was demented. I had lost my job. Someone had died, and you played that song on that night, and I'm like, wow. So back to the kid who found that music made people happy at the age of 8. Suddenly I find myself 45, and I'm now getting that joy once again from music, because I can see the impact that it has on people, and that is what it's all about for me. It's partly about the music, but it's mostly about the personality and people trusting me and allowing me into their lives, and genuinely vice versa, because although there are thousands of people that tune into the show, I don't understand, it's probably a little bit corny, but I genuinely know a large percentage of them, and I know their own story because I'm interested in it, you know.
There's a few things you're guaranteed in Block Rockin Beats. There's always a bit of Faithless Insomnia. And there's always a Prodigy song in there.
There is always a Prodigy song in there. They're two. I mean, those kind of acts. I mean, if you look, we were so lucky. I know we both grew up in the same generation, and I know you love your music as well, and I know you love your rave tunes. But and Aston Villa, which is just a bonus. But we were lucky when we grew up. The dance scene in the 90s was just absolutely magic. And I remember, it's funny you mentioned Faithless Insomnia. I remember hearing that for the first time, and just around about 1995. And I was obsessed with the Prodigy and all that kind of stuff. But then Faithless came along, and there was acts like the Chemical Brothers and Underworld.
I liked Air, but it's slightly different.
Yeah, but it was such a magic time to be a part of the dance music scene. And if you remember back to us, this is what I love about Block Rockin Beats right now. In the 90s, the dance scene was almost perceived as this illegal thing. There's a lot of drugs involved. Commercial radio did not want to have any part to play in it. So you had to source your music on pirate radio stations, and that's where I used to play, or you had to go into Abbey Discs to buy your dance tracks, because HMV and Virgin weren't really arsed, stocking that. They wanted to have their REMs and their Bon Jovis and the U2s and Sinead O'Connors and all this type of stuff. So, but because the dance music thing was so underground and I was so quiet and reserved, I loved it.
It worked.
If to me it was for that quiet kid that was sort of bullied in primary school, it was my rebellious streak, and that was my alter ego. It goes back to that alter ego in the DJ box. So I loved the fact that it was hard to guess. It was perceived as a certain thing, and actually, as it turns out, it wasn't that way at all, but it was just that commercial media had sort of portrayed it to be that way. Do you know the kind of way?
There's an eclectic mix. You get 2-year-olds listening to you through to 70-year-olds, and they make it really clear on social media. You're very open on social media. You've got a great following. Some of them are hearing, I'll go, right, this fucking tune for the first time.
Yeah.
And it's like, for you now, producing that and sending it out there, and you have these people who probably never heard the Prodigy reliving it like you did. You're hearing this music. It's like, fuck.
It's amazing the cross section of society that you get that come to a Block Rockin show now. And you're right in saying that. You've got the kids that are there, and their parents that are bringing the kids into the gigs, and they're going. They're going nuts. They're going more crazy than the parents are. And actually, that brings this lovely feeling to a gig, because sometimes with parents, or with people our age, they come to a show. Thankfully, with Block Rockin Beats, they come to a show and they do let their hair down. They have made that. We do our gigs at concert times. There's something magic about having kids in the audience for gigs. I think they make the adults relax and unwind. The great thing about Block Rockin Beats is that, and the live show that we do, something I wanted to do was I wanted to make it a concert experience, because at the start, before people really knew what to expect, I was getting people going, I'm too old for that. I can't be clubbing at 1 o'clock in the morning. I was like, no, this is a concert experience. You're going to come in, we're going to get you in there, doors open at 7 o'clock, we're going to be on stage at 9 o'clock, we're going to absolutely knock the shit out of you for 2 hours of tunes, and you're going to relax. But when the kids are in, we did Kaleidoscope. We did a gig in Galway there recently, and they were all ages. So you could bring your kids, and you come out on stage, and the kids don't give a shit. The inhibitions aren't there. The hang-ups about having to pay a mortgage or to function, in life, or any of that kind of stuff. The headaches aren't there for kids, so they're on the shoulders of their parents or their sisters or their brothers, and they are going fucking mental. And as a result, you look out into the crowd and you go, yes. So even if I was feeling like I had a bad day that day, or if I was a bit tense or whatever, I don't get nervous anymore before gigs, ever since what happened to me. But with the other parents, with other people around, or the other adults around, they're seeing the kids going absolutely nuts, and you get such a buzz from it. So yeah, it's been great. I do get families tuned in, and I get more requests or more voice notes to the radio show from kids going, hey Dec, will you play Faithless Insomnia? And I'm like, your parents were only kids when that song came out, and now here it's wonderful to see that next generation, and I get such a buzz out of that, and that's what makes Block Rockin Beats so special. So I love doing those all ages shows, and I want to do more of them. But the cross section, and I get rockers and ravers, and it's all come together. But I think when you come to a Block Rockin Beats show, it's just an escapism. It's back to that escapism. You come in, you forget about all your worries and all the troubles that are happening in your life, because we all have them. And you just let your hair down and go mad. And I love, even if you look out at a snapshot of the Block Rockin Beats crowd at a gig, they're not there with their mobile phones. You know, we grew up in a time when we went out, we knew how to party, and we didn't feel like we had to document and video it all. So unlike some gigs you see now, you see some gigs on social media, you know, and it's just a sea of mobile phones dancing. You don't get that at a Block Rockin Beats gig, and that's what I love, and long may it last.
Yeah, we nearly got you, if you remember, for half-time of the Aviva.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, I actually nearly forgot about that. That's still on the hit list. Half-time at Villa Park or the Aviva would be amazing.
So things are going great. You come out of COVID, Block Rockin Beats is definitely, it's going in the right direction. And you had a significant health scare at the start of 2023.
That's right. Yeah, I had a brain hemorrhage end of February 2023. And it came in an hour. And I haven't really talked to too many people about this, but it was a brain hemorrhage. It happened in an hour. It's called a subarachnoid hemorrhage, non-aneurysmal subarachnoid hemorrhage to be exact is what I had. And it's a bleed there was a bleed for me at the back of the head, in that area between the brain and the skull. It happened in an hour. I was, that was the hardest bit for me to process and to accept. But I was out for a run. My days, you know, when I'm not on air, my days are, if it's during the school term, are fairly standard, because Kate's a teacher. She teaches in a youth reach school on Pleasant Street. She's amazing with what she does. Absolutely unbelievable. But because most of my work is pocketed into tours, so if I'll go away for a section, but it's pockets of work, if you know what I mean. And then most of it's for folks at the weekend. I have time during the week to do the school run and the lunches and all that kind of stuff. So my day is fairly textbook most days. I get up and, you know, I get her ready for school. I do the lunches and I drop her, and then I come back and I'll have a coffee and, you know, my porridge and my vitamins or whatever the case is, and then maybe I'll get into a couple of emails. And then what I kind of had a routine of doing was, and I'm sort of getting back into my routine now, but I used to just maybe 11 o'clock in the morning, I put my phone down, stop emailing, stop social media and all that kind of stuff, put on my shorts and my running gear, and I go for a run. And that's what I did every day. And I used to find that the run would give me a bit of, you know, if I was having a bad time or a bad day or whatever, it would give me a lift, the endorphins buzz. You know, everyone talks about it. You go for a run, you get more energy. And that used to set me up for the second part of the day, and I'd pick her up from school and get into the homework. But on this particular day, I did all that. And I think probably one of the hardest parts for me to accept at the time was when it happened was how much I looked after myself. I don't drink an awful lot, you know. I take my vitamins and I eat well, I eat clean. I'm conscious about what I eat. I went out for a run, and it was just a normal run. I live in Ringsend, so I normally run down towards Sandymount area, and I come back up and I go around Bath Avenue, and I was coming up Bath Avenue, and I was going over the bridge there. You can see the Aviva Stadium on the left hand side, and I'd just gotten over the bridge, and what can only be described as like a bomb going off inside my head. It physically felt like an explosion, and it was so unusual and such a sensation that I'd never experienced before. I know it sounds mad, but I nearly thought it was external. I nearly thought something had happened, and I remember like looking around and people walking by, and I was going, has everyone felt that? Is that what's after happening there? And of course, people walking by getting on with their day because they weren't experiencing what I was experiencing. So, but I was coming towards the end of my run, and I remember going, "That's fucking, what was that?" You know. But obviously, I was coming towards the end of the run, so my endorphins were flowing, and you know, I was in that sort of zone or whatever with running. So I was close enough to my house, so I kept running. And I made it back to the house, and I opened the door, and it was only when I got back into the house that I went, okay, something different has happened here. Because I remember going into the bedroom, and I had my phone on the bed, it was plugged in, and I went to check the time and to have a look at the phone. And when I looked down, I remember the pain from that I could feel in this area of my head, kind of going forward and then back, and then it was like a kind of a visor, like it was like kind of like that kind of feeling of pain going from the front to the back to the front to the back non-stop. And all I wanted to do, the pain was so bad that all I wanted to do was collapse on the bed. So I remember collapsing backwards onto the bed and looking up at the ceiling and going to myself, shit, something really bad is happening here. But I didn't know what it was. And I thought to myself, perhaps I'm having a heart attack or a stroke, but I knew there was a life-altering experience happening, and it's a really weird sensation. It's nearly like having an outer body experience, and you're looking back at yourself and you can see yourself. But I also knew that if I stayed, all I wanted to do was just fall asleep because the pain was so much. So I just wanted to close my eyes, and that's all I wanted to do. But for some reason, my body was like coming back from the dead. It was like the coffin opening and Dracula sitting up, and I just went, and I sat up. That's the last thing I wanted to do, but I knew I had to, because I said, if I fall asleep, I'm in trouble. I may not wake up from this. And I got my phone, and I was on my own. I had my phone, and it was running with me, so that was another thing that it terrifies me still. But I sent a text message to my wife and my sister. I knew Kate might get it. I knew my sister possibly could be. She lives around the corner from me. She might get it as well. And I just said to both of them, I said, guys, something weird is after happening. I think I'm in a lot of pain, and I'm in a bit of trouble here. If you get this, please come over to the house as soon as you can. Don't ask any questions type thing. Just please down what you're doing thankfully my sister was actually working at home at the time. She's a cardiologist. She came over, and I managed to get to the door to open it, and she came in. And she observed me for a while. The pain was, it was inescapable. I couldn't, nothing that I could do was making the pain go away. I took paracetamol and that, and it was still there. She observed me for a while, and with a head trauma, I've since learned, I didn't notice at the time, I've learned some amazing things about the brain and the head that I probably was happier not knowing. But with a head trauma, you get quite nauseous. That sort of nauseous sensation, and then you vomit quite a bit. So the vomiting started, and kind of never stopped. And then my sister, my wife had come back at that stage, so they were both observing me, and they phoned the ambulance. And even when they phoned the ambulance, and even if telling the story can get one thing across, is always make that call, because even though I was getting sick and I had the pains in my head and the nauseous feelings, and all I wanted to do was fall asleep, there was an actual period where I did fall asleep, and I still have this recurring nightmare that what if I didn't wake up type thing, but thankfully I did. They phoned the ambulance. I was nearly saying, "So don't be bothering them. Don't be hassling them. It's all good. I'm sure this will go away." And blah blah blah. The ambulance arrived. They observed me, and then before I knew it, I was in the back of the ambulance. That was the first time ever in the back of the ambulance. Kind of my first time ever in hospital. So, ended up in the back of the ambulance very quickly. I ended up in A&E in St. Vincent's. And they did a scan, and they found blood at the back of the brain in that little pocket between the brain and the skull. And then before I knew it, I ended up in Beaumont Hospital in the critical care unit, and I was there for a couple of days before I was moved up into the regular ward. But I remember, and this nurse, and the A&E in St. Vincent's was so busy, and this nurse that came up to me, and she was like an angel, and for some reason I wish I knew her name. She prioritized me because I knew that they were swamped, and she made sure I got the scan, because I think you could see it in my eyes, what was going on within my head, and yeah, I ended up in Beaumont Hospital, and I was there in the critical care ward for about a week, and then I was in Beaumont for 2 weeks before I was discharged.
Jeez.
Yeah.
At the time when you're lying down, directly when you came back from the walk, what goes through your head? Are you having memories about things? Are you scared?
Yeah, it's funny. Scared isn't probably the word. You develop, certainly I did. There's sort of like it's like a basic instinct kind of thing. It's a coping mechanism. So I just wanted to force myself up and to try against all my wishes to plow through it, and to find my phone, and to make sure that there was someone there as soon as possible with me. So sort of a survival mode kicked in, but definitely there was a realization that there was something major after happening, and basically how was I going to just navigate my way through it, and hopefully, and just literally from the very start, hope for and pray for the best.
You have a very tight family.
Yeah.
So thank God for your sister living so close that she was able to get around just straight away. Jesus.
So I was in with them, and they explained to me what was going on in Beaumont. By the way, the staff in Beaumont are just absolutely incredible beyond words. They explained to me what had happened, but I wasn't processing it fully. And they had to do an angiogram on me, so they immediately got me in for the angiogram, which I did the next morning. But this was at about 3:00 in the morning, and I didn't know, but they called my wife aside. So we had Ava, who was she ended up with her grandparents for the night, because she was in school. My sister had to go home and pick her up. I had to make sure, and I wanted to make sure that she wasn't aware of any of this. I wanted to keep her as isolated from what was going on. But my wife was called aside in the hospital, and I only found this out weeks afterwards. And they sat her down, and they were like, "This doesn't look good. It's a subarachnoid hemorrhage. It can go various different ways. The recoveries can vary from, months to years. Sometimes there can be we're trying to stop a second bleed. That was at the time they were giving me medication to try and stop the spasm happening again. And and they were told her basically to prepare herself for the worst. And she had to go home that night, and she says she doesn't know how she got home. She doesn't know how she died. She doesn't remember really getting home. It's like an out-of-body experience. And she had to go back home to a silent house. So not only did the experience affect me, but had a huge impact on my family. I went down for an angiogram the next day. And for those, I don't know if you know what that is, but I mean, they put a camera inside you, and they bring it up, and to me, they obviously brought up to my brain. It's a microscopic thing. They put it in through your leg, and they brought it up, and they were able to observe the brain. It's a horrific experience. It's not very nice at all, but they were incredible, and they observed. So what I had, in a weird way, thankfully, was a non-aneurysmal subarachnoid hemorrhage. So there's pros and cons to that. The pros is that the recovery will be better than if it was if there was a ruptured vessel. The cons was that the negative part of it was that they couldn't find the vessel that had ruptured. So in other words, it was like as if they described it to me as your brain is there, a vessel pops up and spurts out blood and then sort of retracts back into the brain type thing. So they didn't have to go in and they didn't have to do any coiling. But there is this sort of cloud that lies over you as to why, because with something, but anything, if you get a cut in your hand or you get a broken leg, you go, that's a cut, that's a broken leg. A cast is going to fix that, a plaster is going to fix that. But for me, it was like blood came out of your hand, but we can't tell you why and how to avoid it again. And I was like, so I was left in this kind of limbo state, and this apparently is quite common. So the blood was there. They couldn't tell me why it was there, but it was, and this happens, and I had to accept that. So you accept it to a point, then you question it, then you Google doctors, then you get angry, then you get frustrated. You go through all this cycle of thought. But so they basically told me that the blood that was there will eventually be reabsorbed by the body, and that you will self-heal. So I got huge head pains, and that they were controlled for weeks afterwards with various different drugs. I had sciatic pains because the fluid from the brain and stuff was being pushed down through my nervous system, so I couldn't sit down, I couldn't go to the toilet, I couldn't walk up the stairs, so I was being assisted. When I eventually got home, that is, so they wouldn't let me leave the bed in the hospital. So,
how long were you in the hospital for?
2 weeks. So I was just under a week, perhaps, or a week in the critical care thing, where they were observing me nearly hourly, and they were making sure that they were keeping the pain at a minimum, if that's possible, and they were making sure there wasn't going to be a second bleed. But the pain, and that is something that I kind of wanted to talk about, because I've spoken about it before, and the reason I spoke about it because I wanted to raise awareness of this, because people say to me, is it like a headache? No. It ain't like a headache. This is like a bomb going off in your head. And if you imagine your brain being such a sensitive part of your body, and the amount of nerve endings and all that kind of stuff, so the blood kind of swooshing over those nerves, causing the pain, you will be controlled with various different medications, and it would never fully go away during the peak, during the initial kind of couple of weeks. And what it felt like was someone with a hammer. I used to say to Kate, it was like the headless huntsman coming over the hill, and they're swinging an axe, and they're just lashing it off your brain and just going boom boom, and there's no escape. All you want to do is just cut your head off, because the pain kind of so it's not like I do get people going, is it like a really bad headache, that like a migraine? I go, oh, no. This is like someone bashing your brain, and there's no escape from the pain, and as a result you get that nausea kind of feeling, and then you get the vomiting. So they were controlling the nauseous sensation, they were controlling the vomiting, and controlling the pain. And it's a self-healing process. So weeks were going by, and obviously the pain's getting us. But even now, as I sit here over a year after, I still get sensory overload issues. I get fatigue. I will be tired after this interview, definitely, and that was one of the reasons anyway why I kind of I've done probably 3 interviews, but I've had to psych myself up for them, because, and I've turned down a lot. I've turned down a lot of TV stuff because I can't deal with the level of sensory overload issues. And you get sensory overload issues, you get fatigue, dizziness, lack of coordination, and that. And what I found over the last year and a bit was, you get frustrated because you can't do stuff that you were able to do no matter how much you try. And if you do them, like the gigs or whatever it is, you pay for it. Basically, you've got a week of recovery afterwards. So I used to say to people, it's like the last year or so has been like getting used to a new deck. So old deck was basically dead, for want of a better word, and I was getting used to a new person, and that is quite a frustrating thing. So I had to balance, I had to manage my levels of frustration. And I feel I've got that under control now, only recently, to be honest with you, because even going away on holidays or going on a flight, my wife will be looking at me, what if the air pressure causes... So you're left with this sort of like, why did it happen? We can't tell you. Will it happen again? Probably not. You just get back to your, and for all the wonderful science and medical experts, there's a huge grey area over this, but it's been happening for decades, for centuries. It's been happening since the dawn of day. So, it's not something that is new or whatever. It's and I've come to terms with it now, and I've got back out running again. I don't go out running on the streets as much as I used to. I used to love it. I used to go down Sandy in the Strand. I used to not listen to music. I used to just love just listening to my own thoughts and the birds singing, and it was my little sort of escape. But so I've gone back to doing some forms of exercise. Obviously, my performance levels are quite high on stage, and that's a whole different thing. But before the show, I keep myself very calm. After the show, I have a period of calm afterwards. And I go back to the gym. That was my initial sort of thing, because I used to justify that I was surrounded by people, and I had my phone with me, and if anything happened, that at least I wouldn't be on my own, because I have this reoccurring nightmare that what if the bleed happened when I was down at the Martello Towers and I was 5 kilometers away from my house and I had no phone. Do I go up to strangers and go, I'm in trouble? Do you know what I mean? So, so my comfort zone was the gym and being around people, and I used to find them when if I woke up and I was fairly heavily fatigued, or I had the sensory overload issues that eventually, when I got the confidence back, if I went for a walk or if I went for a run, initially the run would start off and I literally wouldn't know where my left and right foot were. But as the run or the jog, when I say run, I mean a jog, eventually my rhythm would get back on track, and then that would set me up for the day. So I found ways to cope and to heal, but I was, I was quite determined to get myself back on track as quickly as I possibly could, much to the frustration of my family. And I don't know, I think I've learned an awful lot from the experience about myself, and about how to handle life, basically. If there's one thing I'm grateful for, it's given me the ability to say no to certain things. And previously I would have been, yes, I have to go to that event, or yes, I have to do this and that and the other. But now I just go no. So I'm grateful for that, in a sense that it's given. People say to me, do I get nervous going on stage? Fuck no. Going on stage now is like, that's fun. So after what I've been through, everything is a bonus, and for that I'm grateful.
2 things. Firstly, thanks so much for coming on and for telling that story, because I'm sure it wasn't easy reliving that. Secondly, how's your health now? Because you look fit. You always have looked fit, and you mentioned the mental, I don't want to call them struggles, but difficulties when you don't have an answer and you're kind of living with that grey area.
Yeah. That was probably one of the most frustrating things, was that when I started to get my mobility back and I started to do stuff, it's anyone with a brain trauma or brain injury will probably tell you the same, that it's this, what do they call it? The hidden disability. So, you come back from a holiday, or you come back from a couple of days away in Clare, and you'd have a tan and be like, you look fantastic. She's your brain. And inside, your brain is in turmoil, because you've got the sensory issues, the dizziness, the fatigue, feeling sick if you're going for it. I don't tend to drive too far. I don't tend to drive. So, so you're dealing with all that as well. I'm doing okay now. And I feel as the weeks go on, I'm learning how to cope with that hidden disability and learning how to live with it. Yeah.
So you went through a life-changing event. There will be people listening to this. Some, like yourself, are very successful in whatever path they're on. What is the one takeaway that you think you should share with like-minded people who are in your position?
Well, in my position, I mean, like, I suppose I think anyone that's in my position will feel the same way, and that is that you have a greater appreciation for life and for what's actually really important in life. I've removed a lot of the shit. I've gotten rid of the crap and the dead wood from my life, and to appreciate what's in front of you. So suddenly, all I could think about when I was in there was Ava, and all I wanted to do was literally. I had a vision in my head. The minute the first night was just, she was quite young, obviously, and was sitting on the ground in the house playing Barbies with her. That's all I wanted. Again, because she wasn't able to come into the hospital, and that was a very tricky thing for me to, for her to process. She tried to come in and they couldn't because of the severity of the ward that I was in, and that. So we had to FaceTime. So I still have that image of FaceTime and her dad, who was the guy that did all the stuff, the school drops and all. Suddenly was just gone from her life completely, and I know she still processes that, but she does it in her own little way. But to enjoy life, to I know it sounds really simple and corny, but to really to enjoy life as best you can when you're in that sort of that healthy mind frame. Because all I wanted to do was, I didn't care about anything. I didn't care about mortgage repayments or bills, or all I wanted to do when I was at my lowest point and I was sick was to be healthy. So I went from having 45 worries that morning to having one worry. And that one worry was, I just want to get better. So that made me realize, or made me question, how important the other 44 worries were actually, or was it just my own mind? You know, as we all do, we're all human, so we're entitled to that. But your health is your wealth.
It's a very valuable lesson and a good message, because, you know, very often it's the done thing, right, for people to say, you know, you got to enjoy your life, and you're like, well, what do you know about my life?
Yeah, exactly.
But when you're somebody who's gone through what you've gone through, and you say, you know, to enjoy your life, it means more.
It does.
It's very authentic. It's very real. You're living that life now, and you're saying to other people, trust me, you know, clear the dead wood, say no,
Yeah.
look after yourself.
Prioritize yourself and your family, and everything else will fall into place. You know, and you can enjoy everything else, and you can do all those other things. But if just prioritize your health and your family, and the rest will fall into place. You know.
Good. But you're back on the horse. You're back performing.
Yeah, I'm back performing, and it's been it's been amazing. All I wanted to do, I know it sounds ridiculous, and I was driving my wife absolutely insane, and my poor mum and my dad as well. God bless them. They were demented, you know, coming in. But I wanted to get back on the horse as quickly as possible, and part of that was to try and keep my mental strength up. So, you know, it was I wanted to get back on the radio as soon as possible, and I went back in probably too early. I knew I couldn't do the performance side of things because my body literally, I would collapse on stage, but I knew that I could get back into the studio after a couple of weeks. I started to record my show to take the strain off. My wife came in with me. She sat with me at the desk, but I needed to do that because when I knew I was going to recover, I knew it was going to take a long period of time, but how long is a piece of string? And possibly it's something to do with my mental insanity, I don't know. But I remember sitting in bed going, I want to get back into the radio station. I need to start to claw back parts of my life, and that was to do with preserving my mental health. I could see, I knew I could, you know, stay in bed and rest and da. I go, yeah, but and what? Like, you know, just sit there for an indefinite period of time, and you know, one day I wake up going, yeah, I'm grand now. I was like, that's not going to happen. This is going to be a slow puncture and a slow fix. So I got a huge mental health kick from being able to eventually go back in, even though, and I still do it now. I over prepare my show so that I don't have to do things on the fly as much, because my reaction speed and my ability to recover if I have to action stuff quite quickly is gone. So I'm uber prepared. I probably was a perfectionist at the start, but now it's gone to the next level. But I have to but to get back on air and to get my life back moving, to go for a walk around to Spar, to buy a pint of milk and a sliced pan was an important thing for me. And then to get back into the radio station, and to have that interaction with the audience again was very important to me. I definitely went back too soon, but I felt I had no choice at the time, and it was calling out to me to do it. So I don't have any regrets. I do regret causing my family anxiety by doing that, because
that's natural.
You know, and I, you know, for some reason people thought that I had some people, God bless them, who, you know, they didn't mean it in a bad way, but thought that dance music had caused the hemorrhage. You know, I had so many theories thrown at me. The stress of being an Aston Villa fan, but I'm very, very grateful. Every day is a bonus, and it really is wonderful. But yeah. So,
where did your relationship with Aston Villa, Manchester United, and Ireland international Paul McGrath come from?
Growing up as a Villa fan in the 90s,
yeah,
I mean, there was
iconic.
You're a Villa fan. You're probably half to play for it. I've got memories of you. I mean, we go back. I also have to, like, in case I forget to say it, I have to genuinely thank people like yourself for kind of making me who I am today. Because, as I said, I started off as this very quiet, shy kid, and meeting people like you. I think who we are today is as a result of meeting some wonderful people across your life, and obviously your parents, your grandparents, your cousins, and all the close family. But then you meet people by mistake, or you're brought together. I don't know what it is, and those people bring you on, and you're one of those people that I've got memories of playing rugby with you as a kid. And rugby, actually, while I was so successful at it, and we had a great couple of years playing it, was something that only fell on my lap when I was 13, because I was tall and they wanted me to catch the line-up ball, and I wanted to be a soccer player, but it was fucking shit. I tried. I played for a while. I know I wasn't too bad, but people like yourself and meeting people like, you know, some of the coaches and the teachers in school, they gave me an incredible amount of confidence. And it's only now that, you know, I'm 45 and I've come to terms with life and I'm comfortable in my own skin, that I look back on life and I go, those people were so important. I mean, there's teachers like Paul Barr, Frank Mackin, and these people are, and then there was people in radio that saw something in me when no one else did. I'm so thankful for those people, because they dragged that shy kid and pulled him out of his comfort zone and made him see that he was something that was different. So, and you very much played a part in that. And I've got great memories of us growing up, and, you know, as Villa fans and that, I know, but I'm very thankful for people like Frank.
But we were literally, I'm looking at, it's funny now, we're both 45. I'm looking across the table at you, and to think that we were literally hip for hip.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
We played second row.
Yeah, we played together.
You know, the two of us to be locked in.
Yeah,
and here we are now.
And to watch, you know, and we went off as a lot of people do, and you go off in your different directions, and then, you know, you always stay in touch, and it gave me such joy to see you and your the success in your career and your coaching, and because you were next level. You were an incredible player, and I know you're an incredible coach as well. So, so honestly, thank you for that.
Stop avoiding the question. Talking about Paul McGrath.
So Paul, every Aston Villa fan absolutely adored Paul McGrath. You know, growing up in the 90s, he's God in Villa Park. So Paul was always my hero. Around about 2010, I was working with 98 FM at the time, and I wanted to organise a charity football game. It was the DJs from 98 FM at the time versus former players and celebrities type thing. And I phoned up Paul McGrath. I got his number. I phoned him up and I asked him would he play, and he said he would. And I met Paul on that day, and we had a great day, and we kept in touch ever since. And since then, Paul has become someone who I would call a really good friend of mine. Paul lives in Wexford. He lives he has his own house, but his neighbours are two lovely people called Pat and Tracy, and they mind him. Paul obviously has had his demons, but he's in a great place at the moment, thank God. And Pat and Tracy look after him, and they manage him. So myself, Pat, and Tracy and Paul have become great pals, and we've done Villa games together, and we've done Ireland games together. And to call him a friend is something that is really, really special. He's a big gentle giant of a man, and he's got some wonderful stories about his career that literally we could be talking about for the next 5 hours. But going to Villa Park was probably one of the highlights of my friendship with Paul in recent years, and arriving at Villa Park and getting out of the car park, and it taking literally an hour and a half to get from the car to the entrance to the Trinity Road stand, because Paul stopped for every single photograph and every single autograph. They love Paul McGrath, and he's a legend. I mean, he's one of the greatest players I think I've ever seen in my lifetime. Lord knows what his net value would be if he was playing right now. Paul's a great guy, and he's in a good place at the moment, I think.
It's funny, he obviously played for United, but after his career, it was all Villa. There's a great cohort of ex-Villa players that still support the club. Ian Taylor being one. You're also very friendly with. Yeah,
I've gotten to know a lot of the people at the club over the last few years, and I've been over there quite a bit. But that's all sort of come through Ian and through Paul. And Ian's been over in Dublin quite a bit. He loves Ireland, and I've been over there quite a bit, and I want to try and get over. I actually haven't been over to a Villa game since before COVID, and because I suppose COVID hit, and then I had a brain hemorrhage, and here we are now. So,
but maybe one day you might play Villa Park.
That's on the hit list.
That'd be
great. To play the centre circle or to do a festival in Villa Park will be magic.
Dec, before we wrap up, what does the rest of 2024 look like for you? Are you playing a few gigs?
Yeah, we had a huge 2023, and what I wanted to do this year in terms of the live show was to try and bring it up. It started off as a very small show, Galway being one of the classic examples for that, where our first gig in Galway in 2019 was to 60 people. And we got ready for the gig in the doorway of the venue to have built us to a point where we had 4,000 people in the crowd on Saturday night. Has been amazing. So what we did last year, we did a couple of big shows last year. And what I wanted to do this year was to bring up the production levels. It's all sort of, it's been self-funded. I didn't have anyone giving me a blankety blank checkbook. So whenever we made money on a show, I reinvested it into it. And I started off, it was just me. Then I had the band. Then we had a crew. And now we've got a lighting crew. And they're all paid because of how this has evolved and because of the people that come to the shows. And what I wanted to do this year was to try and bring the shows up a level. So we announced less shows, but they were bigger in size. It gave me more freedom to be creative with the stage show, to put on a bigger show. So when you arrive into a Block Rockin Beats gig, like what you did in Galway, or what in Limerick, in the Docklands, it's our biggest ever show in Limerick. It's 5,000 indoor in a marquee type thing. So we're trying to do less shows, but of a bigger size, and to make the experience better for everyone. So we've got 2 more gigs to do, and after that, I'm going to have to keep it to myself because we have a few plans, but they're big, and I don't want to talk about them yet because I don't want to jinx them. But what I want to do is I want the show and the experience to evolve, and I want to create a bigger show and to increase that level of escapism when you come to a show. And I think so far we've managed to do that, and I hope it keeps going. And I'm so grateful to everyone that has supported Block Rockin Beats over the years, because Block Rockin Beats started literally when I was at my lowest point and I wanted to walk away. And Block Rockin Beats only exists because of the people that tune into the radio show, that come to the gigs, and that support it. And for that, I am so grateful, because without the people coming to the show to support, I don't know what I'd be doing. So
you need an MC at the start.
Yes.
Let's get ready to rumble.
Or a guy who's really good at guitar.
Either or, I'm in. I'll do it for free. You got to start somewhere.
That's the thing. We're expanding the show. In terms of the amount of musicians that are on stage with us, and
Unreal.
Crew. But I get a huge. Sometimes, again, since what happened with the brain hemorrhage, I've learned to stop and to take stock of what's going on. And I do that sometimes off stage, and I do that sometimes on stage. And sometimes when I'm off stage and we're getting a massive show ready, and I'm there from early on, and I love being hands-on. But sometimes I stand back and I go, okay, the people that are running the venue are here because of Block Rockin Beats. The people that are in the bar, people that are taking the coats in the cloakroom or whatever that is, the people that are putting in the sound rigs, the people that are putting in the lighting, the band members, the sound engineer, the lighting engineer, the photographer are all here because of Block Rockin Beats. And there's a wonderful sense of pride in that. And none of it would be possible without the support of everyone that comes to the shows. So I wanted to say thank you.
You can see how much that means
for that, and it means an awful lot to me, and especially in the last year, getting back onto stage. The first gig I did back was Fairview Park, and everyone in my family were extremely nervous about me being on stage because was the death was going to cause me to have a brain hemorrhage again, but it was a really, really special feeling, and I want to keep that going.
I can see you very successfully holding back an emotion.
Yeah,
this means a lot to you. The people who've created your show are the most important thing apart from your family. You know, they really mean a lot to you.
No, there's a relationship like I have never had in my career with the audience, and that is all I ever wanted to achieve. And I have huge respect. So if people send me, while there might be thousands of people that tune in to the show and that come to the gigs, if someone sends me an email, I'll write back to it. If someone sends me a DM, I will do my best to write back to it, because people have taken time. If someone sends me a WhatsApp to the show, they've taken their time out to open their phone and to send me a message, and it means a lot to them, and it means a lot to me. And I know that might sound a little bit cheesy or whatever, but it's from the heart. And I'm extremely grateful to everyone that has supported Block Rockin Beats over the years. And I felt that the first gig back on stage was Fairview Park, and I felt supported. Does that make any sense? From the moment I got sick to the moment I walked on stage, I visualized that walk on stage, and that's what I was aiming towards, was to get back on. I nearly knew how it was going to play out in my head, and I just kept dreaming of that moment. So when I eventually walked out on stage and we did that show, not only could I feel this sense of emotion that people were enjoying the experience and enjoying the dance tunes and letting their hair down and forgetting about the worries, I could feel that the people that had made the journey from Donegal or Galway or just down the road in Dublin or whatever it was to come to Fairview Park, I could feel that they were happy to see me on stage. And I felt that, and it's a really surreal feeling, and it's an amazing feeling, and I'm so thankful and grateful for it.
When you're by your warm fire in years to come, having your cheese toasty with an easy single in it and a lovely pint of stout
and a packet of shortcake biscuits.
Yeah. How would you like to be remembered?
Wow. I'd like to be remembered as a happy guy. Shit, I'm getting emotional thinking about it. A happy guy and a good dad. Yeah. I was what did you just say to me there? You pumping this into this? A happy guy and a
to me
and a
2 second rows
and a good dad. Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, I just want to be a good dad and a happy guy and someone that brought a bit of joy into people's lives. Whether that be people that directly related to me or people that just know me through dance tunes. So yeah, that's. I'd love to if I was sitting on a fire having a pint.
I think we'll leave it there.
Sorry. But they're happy tears. They're
great tears.
It's a good thing. It's a good thing. Yeah. If I was looking back in my life and I knew I was a good dad and I brought a lot of happiness to people.
Well, they're doing that.
Thanks, man.
Sorry for doing that to me. You did it to me as well.
You did it, man. You did it. You got...
2 second rows.
What a question. Fuck.
2 second rows. The hard man. 30
I
years
appreciate
later.
the chat.
No, it's been great to chat. And again, I want to thank you for taking the time to come on, because I do realise that it does come with it's taxing for you to do these things.
Yeah, but it was important for me. I've said no to a lot of interviews. I said no to every TV interview that I've been asked to do, and there's a reason for that, because it's back to the it's back to the cutting out the trimming the fat. And you're a really important person to me, and I wanted to have a chat with you, and it means a lot to me. It means more to me than probably to you. So thank you for taking the time to talk.
And thank you for sharing your story, because it's inspirational.
Thanks, man.
Brilliant. Coming on. The first question I had was called "What's your biggest fear?" But I don't think I need to ask that question now.
Aston Villa losing in the 92nd minute. That's my biggest fear.
I'll take that one. Where's the best place for a pint in Dublin?
The first place that pops into my head is Kyo's, off Grafton Street. Absolutely love it. Anytime I've gone in there. Kyo's in Dublin have a beautiful pint of Guinness, and I love my Guinness, and I will travel to a pub just for the Guinness. I also love the Grogan's Castle Lounge. Grogan's is a great spot. So yeah, Kyo's and Grogan's are definitely my two places to go whenever we go for a stroll into town.
If you could pick 3 people to have said pint with, who would be your ideal 3, alive or dead?
Famous people, like...
No, doesn't have to be famous.
Jesus. That's a great question.
He'd be good, yeah. He's number 1, is he? I didn't know you were religious.
Oh my God. I'd love to have a pint with Keith Flint from The Prodigy, 100%. If I pick all 3 members of The Prodigy, is that like...
That's an easy swoop. Did you ever meet Keith?
I've never met Keith, but I supported The Prodigy in Musgrave Park last year. So I met Liam and Maxim and the rest of the band. That was an amazing experience. Keith Flint would definitely be up there.
Sure, the big
Jack Charlton. I'd love to have a pint with Jack Charlton. I would love to have a pint with Jack Charlton.
We're just sick of the conversation between Keith and Jack Charlton.
That alone would just be absolutely mind-blowing. Beyond words.
You play some music.
Yeah. I'm not really into... I don't really have an obsession with celebrities, and I don't know why I keep
they
thinking
don't have to be a celebrity.
Yeah, my granddad. I'd love to... Jack Charlton, my granddad, and Keith Flint. That would be some combo. Yeah. Jeez, my granddad would absolutely wreck their heads. God bless him. He might...
Grogan's or Kyo's.
Yeah, exactly. Grogan's or Kyo's. And Jesus, that session would be unbelievable.
What is your favourite venue to play?
One of the biggest buzzes, and it was on my hit list, was the Olympia Theatre. I loved playing the Olympia Theatre, and I managed to do it because it is it's a gorgeous venue. It's the crowd are on you. You walk on stage, and the seats just go up. So some venues you play and you're shouting to the person at the back of the room, but when you walk onto Olympia Theatre, you look and usually your family are in the balcony, so you go out and you see your dad or your sisters and your wife in the balcony, and then out front you've got the standing area, and then the seats just go up. So every time you've got interaction, they're just roaring on top of you. And when you have a venue like that is so compact, it's like nothing else. So the Olympia Theatre was on my hit list, we got there, and when we came off stage, we're like, how are we ever going to top that? There's some amazing venues we've been blessed to play, Electric Picnic and all these wonderful places. And as I said, we've done gigs in Limerick, and they've just been sensational. King John's Castle in Limerick is just spectacular. You walk into the venue through the castle gates, so they open the castle gates and you walk up, and it's stunning, and the atmosphere is incredible. But for me, on the hit list was always the Olympia Theatre because of the history of it and how beautiful it is. So yeah, the Olympia Theatre was definitely my favourite venue.
I need to see this hit list because it seems to be a few little hidden gems in there.
Yeah, well, I want to play New York. I want to play the Bowery Ballroom in New York. Again, because it's such a small, gorgeous little venue. But yeah, the Olympia Theatre was on my hit list on the top, and we managed to successfully do it. So after that, I don't know. I love most venues, but there was something magical about the history of that place,
Yeah, of
and
course.
the wall of sound that you get when you're doing a gig there.
Well, I want to wish you all the best in your upcoming gigs. Looking forward to listening to you as I always do on the radio. And I'm very proud of you. Honestly, whatever about your professional career that's been so successful and your family, but your ability to go through what you've gone through and use it in a positive light where you become an even better person. You know, now you're really grateful for what you are. You know what you stand for. You know your true self. It's an incredible thing to look at that, to see somebody who's chasing them as an individual, what makes them tick. It's a credit to you. And
Thanks, Greg.
I know I speak on behalf of the tens of thousands that listen to you on a weekly basis. We're all fans of yours because of the person you are. It's not just the music.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate that.
Dec Pierce, thank you so much for coming in and giving us your time.
Thank you so much for taking the time to chat to me, Greg.
Produced by the Melrose Future Company.